We begin with our special coverage of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. The United Nations is celebrating its 80th anniversary as the global community tries to navigate the various challenges facing our world today. Key items on the agenda include the wars being fought in the Middle East and Ukraine, as well as the serious challenges being posed by climate change. My correspondent Thomas Porteous is in New York to cover the general debate of the 80th session of the UNGA, and this is going to carry on up until 29th of September, and we got a chance to speak to him earlier in the day. Hello Thomas, and it's great to have you in New York, and if you could tell us, so what is on the agenda for the UNGA that is taking place currently?
Well, yes, of course, we have landed, and now it is the third day here in New York, where over 150 leaders are expected to gather in this building right in front of me. Technically the second day of debating, but of course here in the year of 2025 there are only a few things that are clearly on the top of the agenda. The first being the ongoing war in Gaza, a very visceral conflict in the Middle East, which has led to traditional Israeli allies recognizing a Palestinian state just on Monday. The likes of the United Kingdom, France and Belgium, all of which called a session on Monday and did exactly that, formally recognize the state of Palestine, much to the dismay of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who vocally expressed discontent at the decision. There are expected to be calls from around the world, many of which call this war a genocide. The UN has not called it that yet, but we will of course hear a lot of heads of state address this crisis which is going on in the Middle East, and of course the UN's decision on how it will act on it moving forward. The second of which is the ongoing war in Ukraine. Russia's war has been going on since 2022 and still to no peace. President Donald Trump said that he would end the war in a single day. However, recent escalations, especially from the air in Eastern Europe, has meant that this has not happened. We expect to hear huge statements, particularly from countries in Eastern Europe, and of course those huge European powers that have been backing Ukraine throughout this entire conflict. Now, the third huge issue is, of course, the climate crisis. Now, under President Donald Trump, this has been hugely controversial. He has taken the US out of the Paris Climate Accord for the second time. And so countries who are most affected by climate change will surely be voicing their opinion on how to meet those targets and move forward green energy with such a loud voice like the United States being so strongly opposed to those green energy goals.
Right, absolutely. And you know, 2 days have already passed. The third day is going to also be a very interesting one, with important leaders from Palestine are going to be speaking at the UNGA. Most importantly, since Palestine has been sanctioned by the US president, therefore their leader is not going to be able to be present physically, but there is going to be a video conference. If you could shed light into what all has already happened at the UNGA general debate up until now.
So, as we have said, there has been many Western countries that have now recognized the state of Palestine in front of the United Nations. That happened on Monday, and which led onto Tuesday's session, which of course had Donald Trump seething, seemingly, in front of that podium, in front of the United Nations General Assembly. A hugely controversial speech which Donald Trump delivered, several questionable remarks. One, and the first one of which was noticeable, was that he slammed the institution he was delivering his speech to in a huge way. He questioned the point of the institution he was delivering his speech to, claiming to have stopped 7 wars himself, including that of India, Pakistan, Thailand, Cambodia, and other wars that some people would merely describe as skirmishes. Moving on, he also, of course, called climate change the biggest con of our time, a hugely scientifically proven fact. Donald Trump has been a huge advocate against green energy and a huge advocate for fossil fuels, and so this was more than expected, but not in the more direct tone that Donald Trump did strike it in. However, we could speak about Donald Trump's talk for hours, but we will move on. Volodymyr Zelensky, he spoke today. He once again rose his concerns about the power of the United Nations, and of course Russia's war is moving into its 4th year now, and there has been no end in sight for Ukraine entering its 4th year, and so he raised his alarms there. Of course, Iran's president Pezeshkian spoke today. He said that Iran, in fact, is not developing a nuclear weapon, much like Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says. There has been much controversy and, of course, a war over Iran's nuclear program. And so in order for Pezeshkian to get that stand and say that in front of all these world leaders, in fact, was a significant time for that to be delivered. And there will, of course, has been many other statements, that of Erdogan, that of Macron, all delivering speeches. But we will, of course, bring you all the up-to-date. Now we are live here in New York.